Happy weekend to you, NIO fam. It's Sunday, September 7th, 2025 as I record this. There's your timestamp for this video, and we're going to talk about NIO stock. This is the bull case, and I'm even going to suggest where maybe we'll see NIO stock move up to $7.21 and then eventually make perhaps even a quick move up to $15. So let's dig in. And actually, I want to take you back in case you didn't see this. This was the NIO stock bear case video that I did. And essentially, I'll try to summarize here with my overview. The time frame for this was through the end of 2025. My thinking with this was that if, let's say, Wall Street and shorts are focused on short-term intra-year gains to maximize their bonuses, then they may recognize that NIO, even though NIO does have a shot and may come in with a profitable fourth quarter, NIO is unlikely to report that until next year, 2026, probably in March. And so with that sort of ideology, maybe the shorts think they can continue to get away with shorting and keeping NIO stock below $6 if they can keep it below $6, and if trade volume remains low and sentiment doesn't shift more to the bullish side for NIO, then perhaps they could even take it back down to $5.21. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. This is also an indicator and something that I did a special report is what I called it. But basically, I just pulled up how Alibaba and NIO stock have a lot of the same shorts. A lot of the same big firms in Wall Street have short or put positions in both Alibaba and NIO stock. So I'll link both these videos in case you haven't seen them or want to check them out. I'm also going to do a follow-up video and an updated kind of data entry or share once, we're maybe another quarter or two out from when I had done this video, so we can see, how many of the same shorts or put positions are, remaining, or how many have moved, because I do think that is one of the things, especially with the bullish thesis or case, that we're going to see is some of the shorts either go long or get out of their short positions, put positions with NIO. So with that, let's now do a simple comparison. This is big picture overview for NIO stock. This is the entire NIO stock history as it's traded in the US dating back to 2018. And the yellow represents the stock price. And as you'll note here, the one time that the NIO stock absolutely rocketed up and then remained above the 40 up to the high $60 range was when the FTDs, which are represented by the white lines, dropped off significantly. Also, at the same time, you had a lot of big volume days for NIO stock with over 100 million shares traded. But now let's look at Alibaba, because again, this is the time frame where we saw the drop off for NIO stock with FTDs, and at the same time, the volume came down. So if we look at Alibaba, I've got history going back to 2014. But if you'll note, we had kind of a similar big picture concept overview here where the FTDs drop off and the stock price goes up. In the case of Alibaba, it was above the $250 to over $300 range. Now, if you'll note, just like with NIO stock, the FTDs have come back. And what's interesting about Alibaba is it's a very profitable company. And so that's where I decided to start connecting dots with things like the same shorts, perhaps shorting these together or shorting some Chinese stocks together, maybe in a basket. Perhaps that's one of the reasons that we're seeing the FTDs continue to be elevated for Alibaba. So one of my thoughts with this is that if or when big money decides to move into stocks like Alibaba, we could also see some of that short relief pressure on NIO stock. And the time frame for NIO stock is even more interesting as they are getting close to profitability. So, with that, the short thesis can certainly be crushed. I need to move this out here because let's just talk about the recent time frame, the uptrend that NIO continues to be in. And I mentioned kind of the under $6 level back down to $5.21 level for NIO stock. Here's my thinking with that is NIO stock from about July 10th, it started its move up that we continue to be in from about $3.75. But what was interesting about the move in this case is we're now, as long as we're above $5.33, NIO stock remains above what it had previously seen as the 2025 high. And so if we are continuing to be much higher than that level or that range, basically the move through the $5.21 level came here on 4 days of big volume, 4 trade days consecutively with big volume. And NIO stock has remained well above that level, at least in the short term, looking back with respect to stock price action. How about Alibaba, though? This is the similar time frame for Alibaba from about July 10th. And so it's interesting that Alibaba also on one big trade day of volume made a big move. But otherwise, the volume has been pretty minimal for Alibaba. So again, this is in line with the idea that big money has not come back to Chinese stocks yet. And I also think NIO could be getting shorted as an EV stock, as a meme stock. I think there are a number of different quote unquote baskets where different companies could be shorted together by some of these big firms. And so if that's the case, I also think it's just not going to be surprising when we start seeing NIO stock run. And I'm going to come back to this. I want to tie in a few fundamental things that are also aligning here and into next year, because I do think the time frame matters. And since I gave a time frame on the bear case or short thesis, I also want to offer a time frame for the bull case or the bull thesis, and that is March 2026. The reason for that is I think that's when NIO is going to be reporting their Q4 and full year numbers. And so that should be a positive if people haven't figured out, even in including big money, what NIO is doing and what they're going to be positioned for. Also, that's going to align with the first quarter of 2026, which usually is a weaker quarter across the auto industry in China because of Chinese New Year. However, NIO has been doing things like this. They are working on the global partnerships and the plans. And this is a change that they made, a shift that they made in after the Europe rollout of NIO with trying to export vehicles and get sales going and not getting a lot of traction. I think they made adjustments. I think they were very smart. And this is now what we're starting to see more of, and the alignment of this matters. So, for example, NIO announcing that they're entering new markets with local distribution partners. This is a way that they are able to share expense and cost. It also allows the local distributors to really take the lead on sales and marketing and that sort of thing. So this is a shift, but I think a positive in the way that NIO is doing things. Also, we've got Firefly. I think it's going to be a great seller globally, entering more and more markets. So what I'm wondering is the alignment of the time with this for NIO. Hopefully, this will help increase the Q1 sales for NIO. That's my thinking. Also, we have this, which is going to be huge when it comes down to the bottom line of cutting down on expenses. The big investment, probably the single biggest individual investment NIO has done, was into their chip. William Li shared that the approximate cost was comparable to 1,000 power swap stations. That's a heavy investment. And so they're not likely to see that much of an investment in one single thing again. And now that the refresh models from the NIO lineup are actually being delivered with these chips, this is a reduction of costs. And so it actually should help the margins for NIO moving forward. And so that will be starting to take shape and get reported probably from the upcoming third quarter earnings, and then the full year, of course, that Q4, which will be reported in March of 2026, which is again why I wanted to give that as kind of a time frame for NIO stock and the bull thesis. Now let's talk about zoom. Let's see. Let's bring this a little bit. I want to show you why I'm wondering if we won't just see NIO stock when it's ready make a move up and through the $7.21 level, but maybe we'll even see a quick move, or quicker than most are expecting, up to $15. Now, this is the recent NIO stock price action. To be more specific, over here on the left-hand side, this is from the beginning of 2023. The high for NIO stock was that $15 level or range over here, and that would have been about the early part of August in 2023. But if you'll notice, you've got the spiking of the FTDs, the white lines, ever since then, and they have remained very, very heavy. And at the same time, there has been much lower trade volume. In fact, NIO stock until recently, this recent uptrend that it's in this recent uptrend, just the last couple months, has had more volume days with 100 million shares traded than it had in the first part of the year in 2025 altogether. So if we see this alignment of the trade volume coming back and being more consistent for NIO stock, and if or when we see the move up and through that $7.21 level, which is right over here. In fact, I chose that level because that was the close. It actually wasn't the high, but it was the close here. And this recent peak for the NIO stock price. Now, again, this was in 2024. So in the year of 2025, we are still trading even in the $6 range above where we had all year in 2025, dating back to this point, which again, as you'll see, almost immediately after that came in, you had a big spike on the FTDs, and they just continue. So when we see the sentiment shift, when we see things like Alibaba and other Chinese stocks really start taking off, and or when we see the short thesis crushed, or shorts get out of the way with NIO stock, or they might just get torched, flat out torched, we may even see NIO stock just run right through these levels and go up to this $15 level. That's my thinking. This is very unconventional. I joked in the bear thesis video that it's not your TA. It's not TA at all. So I'm just calling it Nacho TA as kind of a joke. But that's my thought. That's the bull case or thesis. And I'm going to say, yeah, I just like on the bear side, since I put a time frame on it into the end of the year 2025, I'm going a little further because I do think it's going to be very dangerous for shorts to stay short into that March earnings is when I expect NIO to actually talk about and share about their Q4 and full year numbers from this year in 2025. So gives us a window, a time frame, and also some levels to watch along the way. I will continue with the research on the things like when we do get the FTD data and sharing that along the way. But the trade volume remains the simplest, easiest daily indicator that we can track. It's the one thing we can see basically in real time. So with that, I still think we're a long way from the full sentiment shift. And so with that, I think NIO has a long way to go. And we have seen, in fact, I'm going to pull this up as a final thought. We have seen that NIO can move up aggressively. And in fact, this is again a nod to why I think the bull thesis is more relevant and more in play at this time is if you figure that NIO stock only needed about 6 months to move like this, and conversely, it took the shorts years, I mean, literally years, and all of this FTD work to try and get it back down, I just think it is going to be very dangerous for shorts to stay short for very much longer with the NIO stock. But anyway, that's me sharing some of my unconventional view. Thank you if you stuck around and made it to the end of the video. I will create chapters or timestamps to make it a little more convenient so you can jump around, as to whatever preference you want, or I'll nestle in there the links and shares for some of this data, some of the things that I maybe gave a concept overview but didn't have specific tabs lined up for. But I did want to get this video up and out here before the trade week starts on September 8th. That'll be Monday. So have a great day or night whenever you see this. See y'all again very soon.